Was making the third installment of my trilogy. How would the Grand Slam race between Roger Federer and Novak Djokovic look like without Rafael Nadal? Because obviously I made two other parts, Novak and Rafa without Roger, Rafa and Roger without Novak. Those videos should pop up right now in the card somewhere. Nevertheless, I stopped and started thinking about who would be the most random Grand Slam winner on each and every single one of these tournaments without the big three existing. Let's start off with the Australian Open. Now, we have to divide the Australian Open into two or maybe even three parts, because the first part featured a period of Roger Federer domination. He won each and every single one of those tournaments from 2004 to 2007, with the exception of the 2005 season. Nevertheless, the problem with this era is that he usually faced relevant guys in the quarterfinals, semifinals, finals. It was guys like Marat Safin, Andy Roddick, Leighton Hewitt, Fernando Gonzalez, even Marcus Baghdatis in the quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals, so I just couldn't pick a particular season. Now, in the Djokovic era, we are running into Andy Murray. Andy Murray was the perpetual finalist in that era. He reached the finals 5 times, and of course Andy Murray is super relevant with the big three, so imagine how many Grand Slams he would have without the big three. I should perhaps do a video on that. Nevertheless, I ran into the 2019 season, so there was a possibility of Tsitsipas, Tiafoe, or Paul Medvedev winning that tournament, and you can say, well, I should have picked this season, but if Tsitsipas and Medvedev win, they are relevant in 2021, so that makes them also relevant in 2019, so I couldn't pick that. And of course, Aslan Karatsev in 2021, but he needed to beat Sasha Zverev and Daniil Medvedev. Let's say he wouldn't do that. But there was one tournament, the 2009 edition, which featured a guy who was always labeled as a poor man's version, bootleg of his compatriot, Fernando Verdasco. Fernando Verdasco, yes, he was the world number 7 at one point, but he never truly materialized to be an elite player on a Rafael Nadal level, or at least somewhat close to a Rafael Nadal, and he was already 26 years old at the 2009 Australian Open, so it wasn't like he was this super young breakthrough player. He had some experience, and it looked like he has reached his peak, his limit, but no, at the 2009 Australian Open. Look at his results. First round, 6-0, 6-2, 6-2. Second round, 6-1, 6-1, 6-2. Third round, 6-4, 6-0, 6-0. He lost 12 games in the first 3 rounds, and then in the 4th round, he beat Andy Murray, and then in the quarterfinals, he beat Joe-Wilfried Tsonga, and in the semifinals, he almost prevented Rafael Nadal from winning his only Australian Open. They played 5 epic sets. Nevertheless, it would be Gilles Simon or Fernando Gonzalez instead of Rafael Nadal, and it would be possibly Juan Martín del Potro or Andy Roddick instead of Roger Federer. So I clearly see this version of Fernando Verdasco winning the 2009 Australian Open. Now, when it comes to Roland Garros, I think a lot of you would pick the obvious choice, Mariano Puerta here. Obviously, the guy was unseeded and he never reached another 3rd round at a major ever in his career, pre and post Roland Garros 2005. So that would be a great pick, but here is why I didn't pick him. Of course, the whole doping thing. And nobody guarantees he would actually win that final without Rafael Nadal. I mean, yes, he took a set away from Rafa, but Jesus, the guy never reached the 3rd round of a major. Like, he could lose to literally anybody. So I think David Ferrer, Carlos Moya, or anybody from that side of the draw would be actually a favorite against him. Now, I'm not 100% sure about this because I was 7 years old. I don't really remember that final. I just remember Rafael Nadal's hair and this young phenom winning that tournament at age 18 or 19. But nevertheless, I think he could have easily lost to anybody. And that era, the pre-Rafael Nadal era, featured a bunch of really random Grand Slam winners at the Roland Garros. Albert Costa, 2002. The guy reached only one more semifinal at the 2003 edition. Gaston Gaudio, 2004 winner, never reached quarterfinals again. So when you have a bunch of random possibilities, it's kind of expected to have a unexpected winner, if that makes sense. It's kind of a paradox, but to me it makes sense. Now, who to choose? 2008 edition was a possibility for me because it featured Kyle Monfils in the semifinals, Fernando Gonzalez, and Ernest Gulbis in the quarterfinals. So one of those three would possibly win that tournament without the big three. Solid choices. But I went with the 2014 edition. Ernest the Lord Gulbis would win the 2014 Roland Garros, and here is why. The guy played actually great tennis. He defeated Roger Federer in the fourth round 3-2. He defeated Tomasz Berdych in the quarterfinals 3-0. He reached the semifinals and he lost to Novak 3-1. Now, if there is no Novak, he plays Raonic or Tsonga. The way he was playing on that tournament, I think he may be even a slight favorite. And then David Ferrer or Andy Murray in the final instead of Rafa. Tough match, but I believe in the Lord. Because Ernest Gulbis was this guy who was supposed to be great, but he never materialized to be great. And from 2008 to 2014, he didn't do anything. And now suddenly, out of the blue sky, ranked number 18, this guy wins the 2014 Roland Garros. That would be, I think, more unexpected than any other possible scenario. And of course, when it comes to the later tournaments, it was usually Andy Murray or Dominic Thiem. Therefore, I couldn't find an unexpected winner when it comes to the Roland Garros. Wimbledon. I think a lot of you would go with Mark Philippoussis, the 2003 finalist, but I just think that Andy Roddick beats him without Roger Federer. Now, I could have gone with 2006, the whole 2006 tournament, because the semis would quite possibly feature Ančić, Bjorkman, Nieminen, and Baghdatis. Wow, what a tournament, but I am looking for a individual 2007 Baghdatis. That would be a solid choice, but I just think that Marcus Baghdatis is just too relevant. He would possibly win the tournament without Novak, without Roger, without Rafa, but yeah, he's too relevant. 2008 Safin, again, two-time Grand Slam champion. 2009 Ivo Karlovic or maybe even Tommy Haas. That would be a solid choice. Imagine a Karlovic-Roddick final, but I just think that Roddick would beat either Haas or Karlovic. And then starts a period with Andy Murray, Tomasz Berdych, Milos Raonic, Marin Cilic, all these guys who are or were at least somewhat relevant or too relevant for this list. But here is a good choice in my opinion. A random, unexpected choice. 2019, Sam Querrey. Now, I understand that Sam Querrey beat Novak in 2016 and that he was a semifinalist in 2017. But nobody counted on Sam Querrey. He was unseeded back in 2019. And he faced the 5th seed Dominic Thiem in the first round, beat him 3-1. And then Andrei Rublev 3-0. And then John Millman 3-0. And then Tennis Sandgren 3-1. And then, of course, he lost to Rafa. But if there is no Rafa, he faces Tsonga or Joao Sousa. I think he would beat them. And then Nishikori or Berrettini in the semifinals. Nishikori was never a grass specialist. I think he's actually the favorite there. And then if there is no Novak, it was RBA already in the semis. It would have been David Goffin. So it's David Goffin or RBA versus Sam Querrey. Wow, this would be an epic opportunity. And this would be really random because, as I mentioned, Sam Querrey, I thought peaked in 2017. I think everybody thought that he peaked in 2017. And if there is no Rafa, there is a solid opportunity. And of course, if there is no Novak and if there is no Roger, but I really think this was the best choice out of all the almost 20 Wimbledon tournaments with Roger, Rafa, and Novak. US Open America. Let's do this. I ran into the same exact problem with the US Open as I did with Australian Open. Bunch of relevant guys reaching quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals in the Roger Federer era. Therefore, I couldn't pick a particular season. I could have perhaps gone with Janko Tipsarevic, 2011, the quarterfinalist. He's pretty random. Feliciano Lopez, 2015, quarterfinalist. Listen, that would be a better choice. Simply because Feliciano Lopez was never a top 10 player, never elite singles player, kind of a doubles guy, serve volley guy, That was really unexpected. He played great during the 2015 US Open. He reached the quarterfinals, as I previously mentioned, and he lost to Novak 3-1. Now, there would be Roberto Bautista Agut, quite possibly, instead of Novak. That would be interesting, but RBA used to have a limit. Fourth round was his Grand Slam limit, so quarterfinal, Jesus, I think Feliciano Lopez would beat him. And then remember, the really tired Marin Cilic, who won only 3 games against Novak. I think that Lopez takes care of him, but then Stan the Man, Stan Wawrinka, would be waiting for him in the finals. Same scenario, 2016 Gael Monfils. Again, Wawrinka would be waiting for him in the finals. So I had to go with a science fiction, unrealistic scenario with a polarizing, unpopular guy. And I actually could have gone with Nick Kyrgios, another polarizing, unpopular guy. But I actually went with John Millman, 2018 US Open. Let me explain to you why. So John Millman beat, first of all, Fabio Fognini in the second round, and then Roger Federer in the fourth round. If there is no Roger Federer, he faces Benoit Paire or Nick Kyrgios. Therefore, there is a chance for Nick Kyrgios, but I just don't trust him. So I went with John Millman, who, of course, proceeded to lose to Novak in 3 sets. In the quarterfinals, if there is no Novak, Joao Sousa, Richard Gasquet, I think he would have a decent chance in that match. And then Kei Nishikori, who was pretty tired after getting his revenge in the quarterfinals versus Marin Cilic for the 2014 loss in the finals. So I think he would have a decent chance against Kei Nishikori, who wasn't seeded as high as you would think, outside of the top 20, if I remember correctly. Nevertheless, in the finals, okay, we have to kind of do a science fiction scenario. There is no Nadal. There is Thiem versus Khachanov or Basilashvili. He wins in 3 sets. And then Thiem and Del Potro play epic 5-setter, 5 hours, 53 minutes. Novak Djokovic, Rafael Nadal, 2012 Australian Open final type of bloodbath of a tennis match. The winner is really tired. It doesn't matter who's the winner. He is super tired, and John Millman wins the 2018 US Open. So yeah, I think this was, as I mentioned, the most unrealistic scenario of the 4 Grand Slams. And let me know in the comment section what would be your 4 most random Grand Slam winners on each and every single one of these majors. And yeah, cut.